Morning all. I've just been back from the 4 NCL weekend. I've never played in the 4 NCL before actually, because usually I like going cinema on Saturday, and last time I was invited by my good friend Costas actually. I just didn't feel like, also, you know, one game a day is not something outside of a tournament context, you know, where there's multiple rounds over like quite a few days. It's not something I particularly enjoy. Some experiences back playing for County, which wasn't even like FIDE rated, I didn't really enjoy those. But I suppose getting crushed by Harriet Hunt and other people when I did play for the County, who's graphing, didn't really help either. But so generally, one day game chess, I just do find it daunting, because if you lose or whatever, you have a bad position, it's going to be for hours, 7 hour session, and you have to wait till the next day. It's not really something I particularly like. I think I'm more of a blitz player, or a club player. Club matches, you know, just a few, you know, 2-3 hours maximum. I suppose in the Hearts League there's the Germans, but generally this isn't my cup of tea. But the experience of the 4 NCL, I have to say, was fantastic. It was really enjoyable, and probably too enjoyable. I was having too much red wine the night before in the bar. Everyone's in the bar. Well, quite a lot go to the bar after, and so it's a team event. I was in Division 3 for London universities. It's a team event, and I was with, you know, Adam Ralph's team, Toma, Eden, and some others. And yeah, I think I got carried away the night before, and you'll be able to see that in this game. Anyway, I was trying to copy, believe it or not, Anand's idea, which I don't even usually play. So it's Sicilian Defence. I was playing a talented junior player who, unfortunately, plays for the England squad. He's about 170 ECF. 169 is his peak, but he's definitely going up, I think. so F4. Okay, so far so good, but my analysis starts to go quite bad very soon. After Bishop C4, okay, it's about equal here. Okay, my moves don't look to be a disaster just yet, but here my usual plan will be A3, and I thought adventure and Bishop B3 that we saw in the last video. But remember that there's a few key points, opinions I have about this game and the events which are about to occur. I think the idea of simple chess, I've used that in one-day games before with some success, and I've been thinking about it more. And my current thoughts is, if you try, you take in all the analysis, which is there's much more scope for in huge, you know, one-day games. Much more scope for much more analysis. And someone once commented at Gibraltar actually as well that sometimes you can actually play worse because you get put off the natural moves. You actually see ghosts, for example, you know, threats which don't actually exist. Now when I played Bishop B3 here, you know, the bishop is important sometimes on the diagonal to facilitate or discourage e5, because then there's a pin on f7, or later to even, you know, maybe play g4 and f5 and wrench open the f-file. So I'm not actually used to the system, even though this might be a good move here, even though Anna might have played a similar move in a similar position against Gelfand as we saw in the previous video. It's not really something I've ever played before. So that's the first thing I would like to say about this Bishop B3. I played it as a kind of experiment, knowing that, okay, if I have the pawns on the light squares, losing that might not be a big deal, and there might even be a-file pressure. Okay, so let's go on. Knight b6, d3. So now here, is d3 a good move? Okay, it looks a fairly routine move. But even before Bishop B3, let's just check this with an engine. Was this actually a necessary retreat? You know, in this position, if he has, I think actually he played Knight C6 before Knight E7, because actually there's D4 here. I can't believe he would have Alright. So even this looks wrong, because here, if there's no knight c6, then d4. Interesting. I must have this on the wrong... Oh, okay, please ignore this. Okay, let's just carry on here. So knight c6, d3. Okay, castles are now queen e1. This looks fairly standard. It looks as though I'm following the same sort of plan actually in the previous video, where actually one of the advantages of bishop b3, as I mentioned, was it's supporting c2. So after knight d4, I'm thinking, yeah, I can see the big benefit of this system. I'm supporting c2 with my bishop. And I was thinking, the other thing here, though, is, you know, queen h4, it seems as though knight c6 repulses that. Now let's just make sure of that. Queen h4 here is repulsed, is it not, by knight c6. And black's actually got an iron grip on d4 as well as attacking the queen. So I really thought, okay, that looks as though it's not brilliant. So some of my analysis here was actually correct, that queen h4 wasn't brilliant. Now knight takes d4 might be to be considered, because it's about equal apparently, and it does leave the bishop intact. So here is an example, a first example of maybe a simple chess, at least a simple chess transaction in terms of an exchange, because knight d4, let's just follow this. C takes knight e2, it retains the bishop, so there's a simple chess idea which sets a minimum threshold that if all my analysis is wrong from this point on, like if I imagine ghosts, then I'm going to lose c2, which isn't really the case because the bishop's holding c2. Unless he removes the bishop first, then the c-file could be like venomous. But it's going to take time for him to organise a big c-file attack. And in the meantime, I might be organising, you know, stuff like this on using that bishop. So this is the first example where ghosts existed, and I didn't really take this seriously when, in fact, taking on d4 here might actually be the best move. As I say, the simple chess of it is to retain the bishop. So even if, you know, the game was lasting 2 days or a week, just imagine this game lasting a week. It's so much scope then for more and more analysis, and in the ideal world, the more time you're given to think about the move in an ideal world, the actual quality should go up. You should be more confident, not less confident. The problem is, if you start to see ghosts in your analysis and you start to think, well, it's going to be a c-file disaster, then you're not really considering the simple idea. And this probably is an opportunity, pardon me, to get a reasonable good position. Okay, let's say a5, a4. The bishop can be preserved. d5. Okay, queen f2, and the d pawn can be attacked. And white might end up with a minuscule advantage here. If he's lucky, it looks about equal. So, but okay, let's forget that then. Let's just carry on. I played e5, which I don't think is that good. It's actually handing black an advantage in this position. Unlike the Anna and girlfriend game, there's no h6 being played. I'm just giving black f5 on the play. I'm trying to play knight e4, and that made me slightly optimistic to play this, you know, giving up something to get something. But the thing is, e4 is deprived now, and this bishop is gone. So usually I would have the bishop tucked over here, but now he just takes the bishop and he just plays d5. I think that's one of the better moves, d5. d5 is one of the better moves. So where is my advantage? He's like got a French defence structure without me having a light square bishop. I've got nothing to really attack. But there does seem to be an idea of knight b5 to d6, which again I was kind of put off. I thought instead of another amazing idea of attacking the a pawn, which we'll get to in a bit. But let's imagine knight b5. Alright, so say bishop d7 was played, then knight d6 is a fraction of advantage apparently. This is okay. And now maybe b4. I mean, maybe this is the thing. So getting the knight to d6, again, I imagined ghosts about this idea, that actually I'd be setting up this target for f6 and takes. But of course, you know, and the queen might be, you know, with bishop e5, but it's all rubbish. It's all rubbish. Unfortunately, as I say, a paradox seems to have occurred in this game. It's a bit different to Southend, exactly the same time control, but I was more reassured in Southend with the two games a day that I kind of chill out more. That, you know, if I lose, I don't have to wait till the next day. And here, it seems the ghosts had more frightening proportions in the analysis. And even in multi-round one-day tournaments, I feel reassured at least, well, there's quite a few rounds. But the thing is, well, my current thinking is, if you do set this kind of minimum threshold that you try and play simply, yeah, and you try and examine the ghosts for what they are as objectively as possible, then maybe, you know, this maneuver knight b5 to d6 is a valid maneuver here. How can actually black really pounce on this technically? If we just review that again, why is a5 being given as the best move? I'm not 100% sure. Maybe it's to cut off queen a5s. So here, say bishop d7 was knight d6. I mean, it's like a dominant knight. It's something I almost like look forward to during the game, and then rejected from these ghosts. It's quite a bad state, to be honest. But I'm just saying how it is. It's a lot to do with, you know, the time control. I'd play more aggressively if it was a blitz game, because I wouldn't be like worried about so many things. So you know, this over, you know, worrying basically. So what I end up doing is a very, very passive plan now. I play knight a4, which decentralizes a knight. Now he could play even b6. He plays another good move, just queen c7, keeping an eye on any knight b6s because there's a pin, and c5. Now I play b4, which apparently is a good move. It's actually a good move, because the idea I had was trying to use this diagonal. You know, if he took, and if I thought if b6, well, let's see if this analysis was actually correct. Then I play b3 here. Maybe not so hot as other moves, queen c3 or b4. But I had the idea b3 and then use this diagonal, which might be a fractional advantage for white. So maybe that's fair enough there. So sometimes there's evidence that the analysis is actually okay to follow. Now this is a bit of a contradiction from a previous video where I talked about special moves, but chess is a really hard game. Sometimes you do want to aim for highly accurate moves, but sometimes if, you know, you've been having too much of a good time the night before, if your analysis or your level of ghost seeing is somehow wrong, I'm not sure it's the best idea here to try and trust all your analysis. And if that's the case, it's, you know, simple chess. But here he doesn't take on b4. He keeps my pawns doubled, and I let him get away with, you know, strategic good move, you know, otherwise, because if he does play cd, then these are really worse isolated pawns than they are here, because there's no fellow pawn here to either support, you know, to support this one, for example. He's knocking out the fellow supporter if he's going to play cd. So if that's the case, then I have to give serious consideration either to d4, which looks terrible because it's blocking in the bishop on that diagonal, or to d takes. Now d ticks the boxes. If d4, I don't think that's good actually. a6, and again I've kind of blocked and given, you know, black's got fine, absolutely fine position. So the way to play it probably here, to keep these pawns intact and to retain this trump card of this bishop being able to use that diagonal now, is probably d takes c4, because I'm allowing my pawns to be fractured. Now this is a simple idea, and maybe bishop e3 here is okay. So the way it was played, I just allowed the pawns to be fractured. It's ridiculous. If you look at simple chess from the opponent's perspective, even if they're not doing tons of analysis or their analysis is wrong, the minimum they want to get is to make these pawns just look a bit worse, you know, visually, and then see concretely how to attack that head pawn. And this is exactly, believe it or not, what happened. It turned into a disaster. I played bishop e3. I don't know what I was worried about with d takes c4 here. I'm not really sure why. I think I was worried about a knight to d5 maybe. But let's imagine, you know, knight d5. Does it matter losing this bishop for that knight? Maybe, you know, black's knights are better here. Okay, there's an implied pawn sack here. I didn't really see this. Knight b5 now. and is hitting. It's not really a pawn sack. Again, it's a ghost, isn't it? If knight d5 looks impressive, but it can be challenged with knight c3, doesn't that make knight d5 as a potential threat to worry about a ghost here? And knight f5 surely can be answered with bishop f2 anyway, or even knight b6 now using that pin. Okay, so knight d5 would actually be a defensive move to guard b6 because of that pin. So it's ghost number 4, is it? So knight d5. So I've ruled out a simple chess move, d takes c4, from a very simple minimum threshold. If I got all my analysis wrong, at least at the very minimum, I would have kept these pawns intact and this pawn protectable with c3. But no, this other ghost now of knight d5 rules out simply d takes c4. But I was probably right not to play d4. Because it does close up the diagonal, which I want. I wanted to improve the quality of this piece. That was the idea of this knight a4 b4, to try and get on this diagonal. So I'm having to trying to get onto this diagonal now to change plan. But unfortunately, okay, I'm changing plan, but I'm leaving my structure damaged now after bishop e3. He just takes on d3, and this is a wreck. It's looking like a wreck, but technically, okay, it's a small advantage for white. Knight c5, and at some point here, it looks as though my position was okay. He plays b6, but it's about equal now. This structure is bad. This knight is prone to be trapped, and I think this looks bad, and it is bad. Queen b, and he's going to be playing bishop e5. He's going to be attacking these two. It's nasty. So I got to give up what normally is the bad bishop, and the queen can now get here in front of the wrecked pawns. He's played very, very simply, and I'm in a very, very passive state now. He's better after queen d1. I thought queen a4, try and double rooks on a7. He just pounces now with queen b5. My last chance, it seems, is to sack a pawn. There's two ways to sack a pawn, which I probably, this is the critical position which I should have stopped and analysed both ways of sacking a pawn. I can sack a pawn with knight d4, and here's some faulty analysis again. I thought this was possible. It's not. Rook f2 wins the queen. The knight is guarding b3. I thought in my analysis the queen had b3. This is what happens if your analysis is all wrong. So it will only be one pawn, and he'd be going into an awkward square. But it's not that hot for me. But it's better than the game. You know, queen a1, better than the game. Knight f5 is harmless, I think, as he mentioned. Queen c7, pawn up. Even if I take the bishop, he's got the f5 square. So again, you know, knight d4 is much better than the game, or even queen a4. Give up this pawn. Apparently, I didn't see this variation. This is an engine. Rook a3 to defend e3. And here, you know, I'm kicking the queen around again. Why is it advantage to white as well? What's going on here? If queen c4. Okay, so maybe, you know, this queen munching, you know, is punishable. You know, don't trust the junior who wants to munch all your pawns. You know, try and find and arrange a way to punish the queen munching. You know, that's a lesson here. Okay, so no, I just go on the defensive after queen b5. I just play this poxy move. I might as well resign with this move. It doesn't. There's no minimum of anything here. You know, simple chess dictates here. Knight d4. The double pawns are not really worth 2 pawns anyway. So why not give them up to get an aggressive looking knight? Why not do this and check this analysis out? But no, a ghost here was queen takes b2, queen c3, and coming back. Ghost analysis, wrong analysis, just wrong. Winning here for white. So if he has to play this, then that's much better than the game. Queen b3, I'm still in the game. Then, you know, any knight f5s I can take. So ghost number 5. And also, you know, just the idea. What was the other one? Queen a4 is originally intended. You know, this isn't brilliant. Taking this pawn, apparently, because of rook a3. It's elegant. It's attacking the queen, defending the bishop. And this kind of pressure compensation, you know, kicking the queen all over the place, might lead to something good. You know, h3. What's the queen doing on f5 here? It's about equal. You know, queen d4 threatens probably g4 winning the queen. So h4 to stop g4. this looks all really good, but no, I didn't see this particular pawn sack at all. Yeah. I just went on the defensive, and that's the issue with seeing ghosts. You start playing poxy, super poxy defensive moves, which you wouldn't actually play in blitz chess. In blitz chess, I would have casually played this because it looks good. This is the ridiculous thing. Seeing ghosts leads to ultra passive, ultra poxy play. Now this is a different type of annotation from my normal things. I'm talking about one-day games, which I hate generally playing. Maybe some of you out there also have that anxiety about playing one-day chess. On the internet, blitz chess is the most popular. Generally worldwide, I think people play without clocks casually with their friends and whatever. But one-day games, usually for me, it's in a tournament, which makes it of multiple rounds, not like two or three rounds. But this was the long weekend, and so. But as I say, you know, I'm missing opportunities here, left, right, and centre in this game. And now, you know, this spells disaster. Queen D2, and I realise now, actually, hold on a sec. He's going to have Knight C6, Rook C8, and Bishop F8, and this pawn is a total embarrassment to my position. So Knight C6, and I do have the opportunity here to play Knight D4, but you know, to force off the knights, because if Queen takes B4, there's Knight C6. But Black's better, you know. This is Black being better. I was right in my analysis here that actually I'm worse. This isn't active. Look at the pieces; they're not good. You know, they're just waiting to be much worse. If I have to, you know, play like this just looks like utter pox, and I don't want, you know, torture after hours and hours from this sort of position. Although it's not entirely clear how Black might make progress, or is it? Maybe Black just doubles rooks. You know, maybe Black just uses the C4 square. It's not brilliant, is it? So because of that, I just decided to self-destruct here. I played F5, and I basically lost pawn after pawn. He just gobbled this one pawn up, 2 pawns up. Thanks very much. Because there's no Queen G5 here because of Queen G4. And I thought, well, you know, I've got Queen C1. Then I noticed, hang on, there's Knight D4. This makes things even worse. This king I should have tucked in maybe earlier. There's Knight D4, or what he played, even stronger maybe. We're about the same strength, very crushing. 3 pawns up, thanks very much. Oh dear. Takes, and then I resign. So, yes, a disaster game on one day. It shows actually when given more time I can actually play worse than a 5-minute game. I think this is evidence of that paradox. I've tried to explain some of the reasons here. I hope maybe if you do one-day chess you think about this, that the idea of striving to play simple moves that give you a minimum, even if all your analysis is wrong, aim for this kind of minimum thing to get out of your move, which I wasn't really. I was just I was becoming a slave to all the faulty analysis. So here the minimum, you know, to protect the pawns, D takes C4, forget the ghost Knight D5, but no, trust all the ghosts, end up playing poxy chess, fracturing the pawns. This fracture, very costly, very costly, this B pawn. It just ends up in a totally passive position, and I just commit, you know, to losing loads of pawns here and just resign here. At least I got the pain over with. It wasn't that long game, but this is not how to play one-day games. However, as I say, I do recommend the 4NCL experience. If you can get your head around long games, the social side is absolutely brilliant. Go with a fun team. The atmosphere there, it's at a nice hotel, very cheap rates relatively for the country because it's in the Midlands, halfway between the north and the south. It's like Reykjavik, you know, for the Fischer-Spassky match, you know, midpoint geographically. So it brings together all, you know, everyone around the country. The Division 1 has got all the GMs and stuff. Division 2 is very strong. This is my first try Division 3 team, which had the possibility of being promoted, but only if we won all the matches. We won 2 of the matches, we drew 1 of them. We won actually this match, thankfully, so even though I lost, the team won. So So overall, the team, I think, had a really, good time, socially and everything. It was a really good time, the experience. I've never played N4 NCL before, so even though I don't really like one-day games, I just had to try N4 NCL once. I had to try it, and I'll probably be annotating some games from Division 1 and stuff over the coming weeks. So I hope you enjoyed this. This isn't how to play one-day games. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks so much.